everybody, welcome back to wyattoneable Garage. We're going to work on the Yukon today. I thought I'd bring you along, even though there are some good videos out there about what we're going to do. But we need to get to the crankshaft position sensor. There's an O-ring that I suspect is leaking. I do have quite a mess under the Yukon after it's parked for a couple hours. You'll see some drops of oil on the ground, and I can't have that. At least not at this amount of oil anyway. I don't mind a few drops here and there from an old car, but anyway, we got to get the starter out. That's a little bit of a hassle because it's pretty tight in there. I thought I'd bring you along and show you how I do it. Like I said, there's good videos out there, but I'll show you my take on it. Maybe it'll help somebody. So I'll get to it. You'll need, these are optional, of course. They're nice to have, especially the 1/4-inch extension drive or extended drive there for the battery terminal on the starter. The the cable. That's a 14 millimeter. I used the 1/4-inch drive, and then 8 millimeter for both your battery and the other wire that's on your starter. 13 millimeter 1/2-inch 3/8 drive for the starter bolts. This helped to get the shield off the starter, and then other tools you see there are what I used, to include some cleaner, and that's that. Oh, then a torque wrench I don't have displayed. So I elected to go this way with the wheel off, the inner liner off, gain a little more access to the starter, because the hard part's getting to the wires to disconnect it. One, at least you have to do the battery terminal wire. That's the hardest one. That complicates the removal of the starter, so let's go after that. First thing we're going to go after is the heat shield on top of the starter. It just clamps onto the solenoid, so we can get that up out of the way. I may have to move you, get my arm in there. Let's see what I can do here. Yeah, it's going to be a little tricky. Let me get you moved and I'll just show you when it's out. So that's what that looks like. What I found, what was best is I grabbed hold of that tang and just pulled it, rotated it, and let it fall down behind the frame there. So that's out. That's a bolt or the nut for the battery terminal, and we're lucky to have this extended 1/4-inch battery operator able to get in there with that and turn it off pretty good. It's a 14 millimeter. If you don't have it, kind of a nice tool, and they are expensive. Good luck. It's a little bit tight in there. Yeah, so here's why we're going after that O-ring on the crankcase position sensor. One might think, boy, this sure looks like a rear main seal, but it's not. At least, at least as far as I can tell, because you can take this inspection cover off here and look inside. It's perfectly clean and dry, so I'm pretty convinced it's not the rear main seal. I did a check off camera up underneath this side, the starter bolt here. You can see how wet that is, and I had all this clean and dry. I was running the truck. Oil came out behind the starter here, dripping off that bolt, and above that is an oil access via that crankshaft position sensor. There's an O-ring that wears out on these vehicles, so that's what we're after. Got to get the starter out first. And I'm going to take this connector off the oil sending or the oil level sensor, take that off so we don't bust that wire, and hopefully no surprises. To get this connector off here, get a pick, reach up in this cavity here, and what you're doing is pulling down on that tab, and then you can get rid of that. 10 millimeter bolt to take this plastic cover off. It's just an inspection cover, and that'll come out. That's a better shot. But come out and gives you a little more access to the starter, because like I said, it's a little bit tight. These two bolts are 13 millimeter, and while I'm thinking of it, when you put that back on, there's 37 foot-pounds of torque. I think I got you in the best place I know. This is a bit of a struggle I've seen, but I think we've done everything we can to make it easy as possible. Access is the issue here. Of course, I have disconnected the battery so I don't get any extra sparks we don't need. And you don't need to see me struggle because there's no way you and I can both get in here. So let me keep playing around here, twisting and turning. I think you got to hold your tongue just right. Get this thing out. The starter has to come up and around that. So what I found is if you keep this the starter kind of clocked in its original position, then you can go up in there, and that's why you need to get that battery cable off, or else you won't have enough room. So go forward and then up, and that was how I got mine out. This is what we're after, crankcase position sensor. I'll get this connector off, and then this should pull out hopefully. There's an O-ring in there to replace. My cost for the OEM is $75 or a little more. The listing price is more than that. I forget what it was. So I don't really want to replace the sensor. That's good. So I'm hoping I have a O-ring that'll fit. So here's what I had in my inventory. This is the old one. Doesn't look like there's anything wrong with it. It might be just lost its elasticity. I got a new one installed. You can barely see it there, but that's what I'm going to try. It looks like it's the same size. Insulation reverse of removal. These are torqued, like I said, 37 foot-pounds. I got my 10 millimeter back in here. Connection here. The one up above I didn't show you, but I did put a new piece of heat tape back there because the other one was deteriorated. And everything else looks good. Make sure you get this Y looking thing on the wiring harness. That's where it's supposed to be. All right, let's go back on top. Okay, we got the battery terminal on the starter and tightened, and I just got to put the heat shield back on there, and we're going to start it up with the wheel off and everything. Get underneath, and hopefully we don't see a leak. Now, to be honest, it's going to take a little while for it to reestablish the leak if it's going to be one. So the only thing I can do now is take it for a drive, and hopefully it'll come back and it's dry. I'll let you know. Alright, driven 228.5 miles since doing the O-ring replacement. Let's see if I got lucky. Well, I'm looking up and I see drips, so I guess that wasn't the problem. I'll go ahead and post the video because it still does go over the steps of how to replace that O-ring. In my case, it didn't work, and that's just the way it goes on older vehicles. So the next thing for me to do is change the valve cover gasket on the passenger side. I do see some wetness from that area, so let's tackle that next. Be another video, and too bad it didn't work for me, but hopefully the video helps somebody. So, well, I hope somebody can use the video and give you some tips, helpful hints maybe to do your own job on your 5.3. There's multiple ways you can find an oil leak, multiple ways you can fix oil leak. And in my case, I'm going to have to keep working on it. Unfortunately, the O-ring on the crankshaft position sensor either is not the right size and it's continuing to leak, but I'm going to go after the valve cover gasket so that we can check that off the list. And if I still have a leak, I'll go back to that crankshaft position sensor with the correct O-ring, and you won't see that video. Once is enough. Anyway, I'm rambling. I do enjoy the interaction of these videos. That's the main reason I do it. I do read every comment and I respond to every comment. So keep those coming. I enjoy them. See you in the next video.